Okay, and then I'm going to try to get rid of my image. I don't need to be visible. All right, fantastic. Hello, how are you doing today, Leah?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear this. I'm so excited to have you here to speak about your new chapbook called Weren't We Natural Swimmers? And I'm just excited to explore a little bit about this project that you have that you're working on releasing, and also just kind of where your roots came from with your art practice. And so I was wondering if we could start off with you just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was born in Texas. I was born in the south part of Texas, like South, like the border, which meant I got to spend a lot of time at the beach at Padre Island. And it was really important and joyful and free for a family with 4 kids, you know? And then I moved to East Texas maybe around first grade. And so I've been in some version or some part of East Texas since then. I lived in the Midwest a little bit, but yeah, I'm a poet. I began as actually a fiction writer, and then I don't know if it was like writing fiction. You have to sit in the chair. For me, I had to give like 3 hours is the short time, the short block. So it was just easier, I think, to do poetry, or I don't know, a different kind of truth came out with poetry. And so I kept at it. And when I got to poetry, it became more unconscious and magical and more like music. And some of the early poems in the work began, I think, from this. Some of the poems are really early, but let's say like the 2016 poems. They began with this, when the thing that they tell us about tsunamis is that the water pulls back and people see the water on the beach pull back. And if they know the area, they're indigenous or they just know ecology, they know that a tsunami is coming. But if you don't, you're not prepared. But that's what I think the early poems were. I could feel the water pulling back on the beach and I was afraid. And so poems like Someone Said a War Abroad Seems Preferred. During the lead up to the like choosing the Democratic nominee, I was really heartbroken a lot because I knew I was an Iranian American. People that would consider themselves close to me or imagine it or were close to me, I could see in them that they didn't really care about foreign policy, that they didn't understand or seem to understand how important material security was and human security, and that all liberalism stems from, are you secure? Can your family eat? All creative freedom stems from that moment. It doesn't come before. So I would kind of hear the conversations people would have in the aftermath of tragedies like, the Pulse shooting. And I would hear xenophobia and just ethnocentric ignorance and be really heartbroken. And it was heartbreaking because I deeply want to be known. Like I couldn't just be quiet and ride the wave of benefits, like get invited to readings because I'm friends with people, or I couldn't do it. And that was really painful. It was like a reactivation of like family pain. Can I be myself? Will I still be loved? Or will you cut me out? And so some of the poems begin in that place of, hey, your political candidate that you love, that you think is so progressive, doesn't give a damn about other people's lives, and had a crime bill and had certain views on, same-sex marriage, and which everyone's allowed to evolve. But to not even be able to feel safe enough to have that conversation, it was painful. So yeah, that's where the book began. And then, you know, um, the election happened in 2016, late 2016, and I was terrified. I had decided to start dating, um, like dating. And then it happened later the next week. And I I went to my counselor, which, one of the poems says that because it happened. I went to him and he said, it's going to be okay. There are people that are, of faith that aren't even conservative politically. And they're liberal conservative. I mean, they're liberal, like Christians, for example, and they will not let someone be put in a cage. And I went to him talking about internment. And I mean, that sounds really wild to say out loud, but that's what happened. I booked an appointment. I went into him and I said, hey, I've been to Germany. I have studied the lead up to revolutions in other countries with oil-based economies, and I'm really worried about what's going to happen here. We're economically in a weird place, and there's a lot of strangeness. And I think that the worst part of us is going to come out. So a lot of the poems are about trying to stay about speaking the fear that I can't speak when I'm working a day job and trying to protect my family and I'm being a good collectivist.
Yeah, it's still a very it's always been a scary time, but it just seems more and more amplified. And I mean, there's been so much repetition in history that keeps saying like this can happen, it's happened before, and it'll mm, unfortunately probably happen in another shape or form if we don't pay attention to the lessons we've been presented, and we keep getting all these lessons, which is
Yeah.
shocking and heartbreaking. But I appreciate that you are working through this method of surviving and processing what's going on, and speaking on these fears and realizations, because I feel as though it's a tool of resiliency to address this and to also offer these thoughts for other people to see, to read, and say, I'm not alone. I'm not being paranoid. There are other like-minded folks like me who are speaking into the shadows.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, with this work, are there any pieces that you'd like to read?
This poem is called Love American Made, Your Toy Owed Us. Your love is a wet risk highway across the Midwest you're unfolding. Your body a road hungry under a frontierish horizon. You still prefer the sober lovers with their foreign motors, but hate the smell of oil. You know how I'd let you dance beneath my metal. I'd drive all over you, but this hurts me too much, the swell and curl of your nostrils, and you hate the smell of oil. Well, any love is a wet risk, a gamble ending in the spin out or slip. The heart I hide behind the hood, always speeding hot, too easily interstated. Lying down in front of me, you say, use my miles of hard concrete to run away. I'm bigger than your Middle East, than your deeper South. Well, I know when I hear an engine idling. You say, now, won't you ride my good 1,000 country miles? For you exploding so, orange bright with interstate lights, me under your moving body, I could make you a vehicle so full of light, oh, beneath. Feel this longing exploding so. Oh, no, I prefer the pavement rising under me, unlit, so lonely, as if a province explored first by my own dark hands and the Milky Way. Baby, I will always wear your hate, the smell of oil.